It was one of those rainy evenings when the streets seemed to hum with tired headlights and quiet thoughts. The high-end restaurant on the corner of Fifth Avenue glittered like a jewel box in the downpour. Inside, laughter mingled with the clinking of crystal glasses, the hum of wealth and comfort filling the air. Men in suits and women in diamonds leaned back in leather chairs, their words thick with confidence and old money. At one corner table sat a man who had everything, or at least, that's what the papers said. His name was Edward Blake, a billionaire, tech genius, and one of the youngest self-made moguls in the country. He had built empires from code, reshaped markets with ideas, and gained a reputation for being untouchable. But that night, he was tired. The endless meetings, the press, the boardroom politics, all of it had left him hollow. He was staring at a glass of wine he hadn't touched when the waitress approached. "Good evening, sir," she said softly. Her voice was calm, steady, not the nervous tone most people used around him. "Are you ready to order?" Edward looked up, mildly annoyed at being interrupted by the simplicity of real life. The woman was young, maybe in her mid-20s. Her hair was tied back neatly, her uniform slightly worn, her smile polite but genuine. There was something in her eyes, a quiet intelligence that didn't belong to someone merely taking orders. He smirked, resting his chin on his hand. "Tell me," he said dryly, "if you were me, what would you order tonight? Or better yet, what would you invest in?" It was meant as a joke, a lazy one. A billionaire teasing a waitress about money, the kind of humor that tasted of arrogance. But she didn't blush or laugh nervously. She just looked at him thoughtfully. "Well," she said after a pause, "if I were you, I'd invest in people." He frowned. "People, yes, people. You can build all the companies in the world, but if the people working for you feel small, you'll never really grow. You're only as rich as the lives you change." For the first time that evening, Edward looked at her as if seeing her clearly. There was no trace of sarcasm in her tone. She spoke like someone who had lived her words, not rehearsed them. He laughed softly, shaking his head. "You sound like a motivational speaker." She smiled faintly. "No, sir, just someone who's seen what money can't fix." And with that, she left to serve another table, leaving him staring after her, strangely unsettled. The night wore on. The restaurant began to empty. Edward lingered, sipping his wine now, turning her words over like pebbles in his mind. Invest in people. What did that even mean anymore? In his world, everything was measured: productivity, efficiency, performance, profit. People were numbers on a spreadsheet, and yet here was a waitress reminding him of something he had long forgotten. When she returned with the check, he found himself asking her name. "Anna," she said. "Anna," he repeated, as if testing the sound. "You're quite philosophical for a waitress." She smiled again, a little sad this time. "I wasn't always a waitress." That caught his attention. "Oh, what were you before?" "A student, studying economics." He raised an eyebrow. "And now you're here." She nodded, her expression unreadable. "My mother got sick. I dropped out to take care of her. Medical bills don't wait for dreams." Edward leaned back, suddenly feeling the weight of her words. He had built a company that prided itself on innovation, yet here sat innovation itself, serving tables because life had handed her a cruel card. "Do you ever think of going back?" he asked quietly. "Every day," she admitted. "But dreams don't pay rent." He looked at her, something shifting inside him, something uncomfortable and unfamiliar. For years, he had surrounded himself with brilliance, analysts, advisors, strategists, but none of them had ever spoken with such clarity, such conviction. "Anna," he said, "if you could give financial advice to a billionaire, hypothetically, what would you say?" She blinked, surprised. Then she smiled. "Don't spend your life trying to multiply money. Spend it trying to multiply meaning." He felt that line hit him like a cold wave. She wasn't joking. She meant every word, and he realized, painfully, that she was right. For all his wealth, for all his success, there was no meaning left in his days. Only transactions. Before he could respond, she excused herself again, leaving him sitting in the silence of his own reflection. The next morning, Edward found himself thinking about her words during his board meeting. His executives talked about market expansion, mergers, and quarterly growth. But his mind was elsewhere, on a waitress who had once studied economics and still understood the human economy better than anyone in that room. After the meeting, he made a call. "Find out who owns the Willow," he told his assistant. The restaurant. Within hours, he had the information. By evening, he was back there, this time not as a customer, but as a man with questions. Anna was wiping down tables when she saw him walk in. "Back again," she said, surprised. "I didn't get to thank you," he said, "for the advice." She looked embarrassed. "I didn't mean to." "No," he interrupted gently. "You were right. I've spent years building companies that make money, but not necessarily a difference. You reminded me what matters." She glanced at him skeptically. "And what are you going to do with that realization?" He smiled faintly. "That's what I came to ask you." Her brows furrowed. "Me? Yes. I want you to come work for me." Her eyes widened. "Work for you? Doing what?" "Advising me," he said simply. "About people, about purpose, about perspective." She laughed. Genuinely, incredulously. "You can't be serious." "I am," he said quietly. "You told me to invest in people. I want to start with you." She stared at him, the color draining from her face. "Mr. Blake, I'm a waitress, not an executive." "Good," he said. "Executives tell me what I already know. I need someone who can tell me what I don't." For a long time, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she shook her head. "I can't leave yet. My mother needs me. I can't risk losing this job." He nodded, thoughtful. "Then I'll help you take care of her. Full medical support, no conditions." Her lips parted in disbelief. "Why would you do that?" He smiled, a little sadly. "Because you reminded me that I'm human." A month later, Anna was sitting in a sleek office overlooking the city. Her job title was unofficial, human advisor, but her influence was undeniable. She didn't deal with stocks or numbers, she dealt with stories, with people, with hearts. She attended meetings, listened to ideas, and asked one simple question that began changing everything: who does this help? At first, the board thought Edward had lost his mind. But soon, something remarkable began to happen. Productivity increased, turnover dropped, projects grew not just in size, but in purpose. Employees felt seen, heard, valued. The company began funding small businesses, offering scholarships, investing in communities. And at the center of it all was Anna, the waitress who had dared to speak truth to a billionaire. One evening, as the sun set behind the skyline, Edward and Anna stood by the window of his office. "You've changed everything," he said quietly. She smiled. "You changed it. I just reminded you why." He turned to look at her. "You know," he said, "I used to think success was about how much you could buy. Now I realize it's about how much you can give." Anna looked at him, eyes glistening. "Then I guess you've finally made your best investment." Months passed. Edward's company became a model for socially responsible entrepreneurship. Other CEOs began reaching out, curious about his transformation. When asked in interviews what had changed his perspective, he always gave the same answer: a waitress did. But the story didn't end there. One morning, Anna received devastating news. Her mother's health had taken a turn for the worse. She rushed to the hospital, spending days by her side. Edward offered every possible support, but despite everything, her mother passed away peacefully one quiet evening. At the funeral, Edward stood beside Anna, silent. When she finally turned to him, her eyes red but resolute, she said, "She would have liked you. You remind her of the son she never had." He smiled softly. "And you remind me of the person I was supposed to be." In the months that followed, Anna didn't return to the company right away. Edward told her to take her time. While she was away, he started something new, a foundation named the Anna Initiative, dedicated to funding education for underprivileged students, especially women who had left their studies to care for their families. When she finally came back, he handed her a folder. Inside was the first batch of scholarships approved under her name. She looked at him in stunned silence. "You did this, for me?" He shook his head. "No, for everyone like you, who dreams, sacrifices, and keeps believing even when life doesn't." Tears filled her eyes. "Edward, I don't know what to say. Just promise me one thing," he said. "Never stop giving advice. The world needs more people who remind us of what's real." She laughed through her tears. Only if you promise to keep listening. He smiled. Deal. Years later, when Edward Blake passed away peacefully in his sleep, the world mourned the loss of a visionary. But his greatest legacy wasn't his wealth, it was the change he inspired. At his memorial, Anna spoke to a crowd of thousands. Her voice trembled but never broke. Edward once asked me for financial advice, she began. And I told him to invest in people. He took those words to heart, and the world is better because he did. He proved that wealth doesn't define greatness, compassion does. He taught me that one conversation can change a life, and one act of kindness can change the world. The crowd was silent, every heart heavy with emotion. As she stepped down from the stage, the setting sun cast a golden glow through the glass, illuminating her face. In that light, Edward's words seemed to echo in the air, "You reminded me that I'm human." And as Anna walked away, she smiled faintly, whispering to herself, "You finally made your best investment."